Well, in BC, the NDP's election gamble has paid off. The New Democrats under John Horgan managed to turn their minority government into a majority. Global BC's Richard Zussman, who's been watching the campaign from day one, joins us from the BC legislature in Victoria. First of all, the NDP managed to pull off a victory in a pandemic. What does that say about the ability to hold a campaign despite the health crisis?
Yeah, Robin, two different things here. First, it's the actual voting during a pandemic. For the first time in BC's history, more people voted before Election Day than on Election Day. 1/3 by mail, 1/3 in advance, and 1/3 yesterday. Then there's a politics of it. There is a trend emerging here in Canada where leaders who governed through COVID-19 seem to get a bounce at the polls. And this is exactly what happened with NDP leader John Horgan. He has been almost universally praised across British Columbia for his good management through COVID-19 and rewarded with 55 seats as of the early results coming back. And all of that is a signal towards 4 years of stable governance. And the first priority for Horgan, who is actually back here in Victoria working today, will continue to be managing the pandemic.
I believe the best way forward is to make sure that government is there focused on the needs of individuals, businesses and communities, and we're going to be able to do that coming into the fall and into next spring as we prepare a budget which will be, again, one of the most extraordinary budgets ever tabled in British Columbia.
Richard, let's talk about how significant this is for the NDP. They can get elected in that province, but the question is getting re-elected, so this is very significant.
It sure is. It's the first time in the province's history where a sitting NDP premier has won re-election, and the way that it was won was substantial as well, Robin, substantially in Metro Vancouver and growing that base into the suburbs. So an impressive showing by the NDP, who are leading from beginning to end in the polls and clearly finished the job. Although there are a lot of mail-in ballots that still need to be counted, the thought is that that won't dramatically change the outcome here.
All right, Richard Zussman in Victoria, BC. Next up at the polls, Saskatchewan. Voters will cast in-person ballots tomorrow, but that province has also had a significant number of advance and mail-in votes. There's no doubt the COVID-19 pandemic has shifted the way elections are conducted in this country. Our chief political correspondent, David Akin, is here to talk about how these changes could be permanent. David, BC is an example.
Well, Robin, the numbers are simply staggering. In BC, as many as 30% of all votes cast came in by mail.
And in Saskatchewan on Monday, it looks to be the same. A record turnout already in advance votes, and the mail-in ballots could total more than 10% of the vote.
I think that bodes well for the electoral system and for the interest of everyday voters in our democracies.
The change is being driven, of course, by the pandemic.
We're really bending the curve by reducing the potential for spread of COVID-19 because people are voting by vote by mail. They're taking advantage of advance voting, and that means that they're spreading it out for Election Day as well.
But this trend is almost certain to be permanent. That's one reason why Canada's Chief Electoral Officer, Stéphane Perreault, is pressing MPs to change Canada's elections law.
There is a challenge there that exists at a national level that does not compare provincially or locally.
In the 2019 general election, about 50,000 Canadians voted by mail. Elections Canada believes that if there is a fall federal election, 4 million Canadians, not 50,000, 4 million would vote by mail. And that is going to fundamentally change how campaigns work.
You got to have earlier debates. You've got to have the platform more dialed up and rolled out as a whole. I think those things are going to change.
And to make sure that voters have time to get their ballots and mail them back, Canada's Chief Electoral Officer is already on record urging Prime Minister Justin Trudeau that if there is a fall election, it should be as long as legally possible, about 7 weeks, rather than the minimum length, 5 weeks, of the 2019 federal election. Robin?
David Akin in Ottawa. Thanks, David.